After recently emptying out a few tubes for my first set of student-grade watercolor paints, I decided it was time for an upgrade. I'm going to be swatching the Daniel Smith Primary Colors Pack. And I do use the term swatching somewhat loosely, by the way. I'm just going to be painting a handful of ink drawings. These aren't true swatches, but I'll make sure that I use a variety of different values throughout so that we can see what these colors are capable of. On my palette here, from left to right, I have Hamza Yellow Light, Quinacridone Rose, and Phthalo Blue. And we're just going to ignore those two middle colors for this video. And then there's New Gamboge, Pyrrole Scarlet, and French Ultramarine. And as you can see here, I'm beginning with the warm colors. So generally, warm refers to red, orange, and yellow. But it's not always as simple as that. We also need to consider the undertones. And I'll admit that I looked up each of these specific colors to make sure that I had them in the right category. I was second guessing myself on a couple of these. And I really think that some people just have a knack at seeing those undertones automatically. But unless I'm comparing two colors side by side, I can't always tell which one leans more warm versus more cool. So hopefully this little practice here will help me get a better understanding of warm versus cool. All right, so warm colors will often feel energetic. They will stand out and draw attention, and they can even create a sense of urgency. So picture sales signs and clearance signs. They're almost always going to be yellow or red. And I try to think of heat and what colors we would see in fire to help me remember which colors are warm. So again, it's generally red, orange, and yellow. So in your artwork, warm colors are nice to work into foregrounds because they can make objects appear closer. And from what I can tell, it looks like French Ultramarine is the only granulating watercolor in this group, which is kind of interesting. I can see hints of granulation in the mixes that contain French Ultramarine, but nothing major. Okay, and then we're now going to move on to the cool colors. So now we're talking about green, blue, and purple. Cools can feel more relaxing and calming than warms. And when used on walls or with decor, they can help make a space feel larger and more open. So let's picture a day spa, for example. They will often use shades of white on the walls for a feeling of cleanliness. Plus, you'll see shades of blue and green in the artwork and the room decor. So the result is both calm and clean. In your paintings and other artwork, cool colors will generally appear farther away. So it's nice to experiment with cools in your backgrounds. I recently read somewhere that as a general rule of thumb, cools should be used for shadows while warms should be used for light sources. And so this would go for natural light like the sun or a full moon, as well as other sources like the glow from street lights or a lamp in the corner of the room. It seems pretty obvious, right? But I will say, this isn't something I really put much thought into before. It does make perfect sense though. And again, keep undertones in mind. So next time I'm painting a scene, I'm going to pay closer attention to whether I'm following this practice or not. So if I'm painting a red wagon, am I pulling in warm red for the highlights and using cool red for the shadows? When I paint a blue vase, am I grabbing the warm version for the side where the light hits and the cooler version for the darker side? I don't think this is something I do automatically, but the concept is definitely worth looking into and exploring for sure. All right, so as we finish up here, I'm just going to show a side by side so we can see cools versus warms. And let me know in the comments, are you one of those people who can just look at the color and naturally see the undertones or not? Well, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.